Okay, that didn't work. All right.
I do believe we are live.
I tried to share my screen and it didn't work. You're on, Gary.
Oh, okay.
Well, I tried to share my screen and that failed completely. So, hello. My apologies. We're live. I'm going to get right over there. Welcome to our Lower Decks stream. Today we are live with RC, who is at Neon Green City on Twitter, and hey, Gary. Hello, and Gary, who is off screen today. He's not feeling super energetic.
Yeah.
So he is off screen today, and he is at Spearwalker on Twitter.
Hello, Green. Hey.
So yeah, Gary has, I don't know if you want to talk much about it, but Gary has a chronic illness, so sometimes he's not feeling up to doing a whole lot. So he's always willing to chat, but not always super up to being on camera.
Yeah.
So maybe if you want to introduce yourselves and a little bit about why you want to talk about Lower Decks today and why you want to chat about TV and Star Trek in general.
Do you want to go first, man?
RC.
RC?
Yep.
Oh, I'll go.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm a lifetime Trekker. Like excuse me.
No worries.
I grew up watching TNG. I remember you watching TOS as a kid. Like every lunch was like lunchtime viewing. And yeah, so I just am a hugely dedicated to the franchise. I have a lot of nostalgia for it and a lot of like just general love for it. And Lower Deck specifically. So I am by no means a hater on Discovery or Picard. As you know, we did a end of season Picard podcast or broadcast as well.
Yep, and we'll probably go back to Picard when Picard starts up again, as well as Discovery. We like both of those.
So I'm not a hater on either of those shows. I do enjoy them, but I do understand that people complain that they lack that Star Trek feeling. Discovery especially feels a lot like Mass Effect, more so than I'd say Star Trek. And so Lower Decks came around, and I was by no means like a pessimist on it. I thought it was going to be a decent show. But man, it really captures the feeling of like TNG in a way I didn't expect it to.
I think so too. I mean, there was someone, I think I read a review, something that said it is less making fun of Star Trek than sort of making fun around Star Trek or something like that, and humor of Star Trek than less like pointing at Star Trek. So
yeah, it's not mean spirited at all. It's very loving.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Gary?
So well, when mobile and work for the CBC and do cataloging of the gem content, and so my interest also because my household was very much sci-fi. Like my father watched Doctor Who, we watched Star Trek. Like if it was on and it was something to do with outer space or something along those lines, then we were watching it. So kind of between those two things, Lower Decks is kind of hits the sweet spot for me. It's both something I enjoy, and I do believe kind of along the sentiments of what you guys have said, that it's kind of celebrating Star Trek and has done a real good job kind of to this point, really highlighting a lot of the kind of lore, which I find has been kind of fun. Like the call-outs that they've done, especially the first episode, like one after the other, it was really funny. And I think it kind of adds to the humor of the humor that they're able to hit without kind of denigrating the content. So it's really kind of a fun show to watch as a result, and kind of keeps you on your toes. I have to say, like the Gary Mitchell comment in the first episodes, like
that's
everybody
cut, right?
The deep cut, and everybody had to go and take a look. They had to search that on Google, right? So,
well, there's very few. There are some people who didn't have to search the Google at all, but
absolutely.
I'm sure there's some people who knew what that was right away. So, I get much like my dad was a big Star Trek fan, so it was something that was always around for a long time, and I found the original series pretty boring when I was a kid. I'm sure most people have some experience of that where they're like, why are you watching this? And I got a lot of affection for that after a while. And so I was very excited when TNG came on, and I watched a lot of that. And so I've been following all of this, and like RC said, we did a lot of talk about Picard. And so it seemed logical to do some talk on Lower Decks as well. And so it's been a nice sort of return to Star Trek. Hang on, I'm just gonna excuse me. So what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say the original series is tough. I tried to go back and watch it again.
I'm in the process of rewatching it. I'm in season 3. It's hit and miss. It does genuinely have some really good episodes still. Like the episode I got playing in the background, which I watched with volume on last night. I really liked. Like the episode where this energy being that feeds off like anger has co-opted the Enterprise and has like stranded a bunch of Klingons and Federation, so they constantly fight each other. It's a good episode. I liked it. But then you get like the Captain Kirk becomes leader of like a pseudo Native American tribe, where one of the guys is literally named like Oneida, I think. It's like oh, that's rough.
Yeah, no doubt.
There were some rough episodes.
Well, I mean, in the Gary Mitchell situation, for anyone who didn't go ahead and Google that, is basically he became like some omnipotent god king, who basically like threatened the Enterprise, and as one does, and he and this other woman on the ship, the doctor on the ship, became both omniscient and omnipotent and could do all sorts of things. And Kirk ended up having to put a rock slide on him, but he said he died he said in the log that he died in the line of duty, both of them. So the question that people were wondering is like, by Mariner mentioning Gary Mitchell and saying, you don't have to look him up, I know what happened. Does Mariner know what actually happened? And if so, how?
There's a whole gag of Mariner knowing shit she's not supposed to know. It's kind of the whole gag of her character.
So maybe we can talk about the characters first. We were kind of talking about that before, whether we talk about that. So let's talk about Mariner. It is kind of the gag, one of the gags of her character, that she knows all these things she's not supposed to know, and did gray ops apparently with Klingons back in the day.
So, I really like Mariner. We're only 2 episodes in, so I suspect that this will change. And this is not a term I throw around loosely. I kind of hate it as a term, but I do feel it kind of applies to her, which is she is a bit of a Mary Sue. Once again, I don't think they're going to stay that way. I think they'll introduce some complications to her later. You can really feel the Rick and Morty vibes between her and what's his name? Boimler. Yes, you can really see like they got like he's the Morty and she's the Rick. But in Rick and Morty, they balance sort of Rick being this totally awesome character by giving him these really strongly pronounced mental health issues. And so far they haven't introduced that with her, but we're only 2 episodes in, so I'm sure that as they develop her,
Well, what they have is her drawback is basically that she's so impulsive and unable to control her basically her, you know, ideas and impulses and her basically her energy, that she gets herself into trouble, and though she should be further along in her career. So Boimler says they're the same age, but I think maybe she's a few years older. I think they're basically the same age, but she obviously graduated earlier than the rest of them. Yeah, because she's been busted down back to ensign a few times.
Well, it's also been established she's been in Starfleet for about 5 years. Whereas Boimler's been in Starfleet for 1 year.
Oh, we also discussed that she might be a Wesley situation.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Because her parents, her dad is an admiral, her mom is a captain. No one knows that. But we talked about it, and I'm like, she knows so much stuff, and she's done all these things. Maybe she was a Wesley situation where basically she kept getting involved in all this stuff on her parents' ship or on her mom or dad's ship, that they were finally like, we just got to give her a rank and something to do, and then let's ship her off to academy as soon as possible. And that's why she's always like, I know what's going on. I know what's happening. And she's like, senior officers are overrated, man. They're always like yelling about this and that. They're so stressed out. And I'm like, yeah, like your parents, right? Yelling at you about what you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, so, that is very clear.
Yeah.
I think like my issue is that, okay, so her impulsiveness, I mean, I like her as a character. I don't want to complain too much. She's a very enjoyable character. I really like her personality. I think any complaints I have are more with how they structured her story than any complaints about her as a character.
Mm-hmm.
But like episode 2, which I just rewatched half an hour ago, like, yes, her impulsiveness is what gets them stranded in this like multicultural alien city. But then but there's no consequences to it beyond her initially getting stranded. She knows the solution to every problem they come across after that. So, like, whereas Boimler's just fumbling around and having no idea to the point where, like, even the one time she does fumble, it's revealed that, like, obviously that was fake. It was so obvious. No one's going to mistake a Ferengi for anything but a Ferengi.
And also, like, there haven't been Ferengi like that in so long, right? Like, it seemed like it was a setup too, because it was like season 1, season 1, Next Generation, human, Ferengi, right? And then, like, the joke was, he's like, we had a whole conversation after that. Oh, me and the wife are going to Ryza. Yes, yes. How are the children? Yes, yes. One of them is doing a doctorate on Orion 3. We told him not to go to Ferenginar because, you know, we need the children to get some culture. He's wearing the little monocle. Like, I mean, you know.
The monocle killed me. It was so funny.
The monocle was, like, amazing. There's so many details. Like, yes. I mean, like, the details are really what's great. And I'm going to, like, be a little Survivor nerdy right now and say, like, shout out to the Survivor writers on this, because there are 2 Survivor players. Yeah, there are 2 Survivor players who became TV writers who are on the show. It's I know John Cochran and Dave, and I don't want to say his last name wrong, so I'm going to look that up later. But Dave and John both played Survivor, and now they're working on the show, and they are big old nerds. So it's really nice to see people who love the show so much working on the show, like, because the love for Star Trek is so super obvious in this. Like the, you know, that first scene in episode 1 establishes Boimler and Mariner so well, because I'm like, oh, Boimler's like nerdy Star Trek fan us, right? Boimler's the guy who's like imagines doing a captain's log, because I'm like, who hasn't written like a fan fiction captain's log or imagine doing a captain's log? Like, come on. You've been like, yeah, I would do captain's log. I'd be like, captain's log, yeah, this happened. And I'm like, awesome, blah, 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 right? And, you know, like, it's embarrassing, but everyone's done it. Everyone's fantasized about it. And then Mariner is the Star Trek fan where I was saying to Gary, I'm like, oh, like Mariner's so like me. I've always imagined me being in, like, when I was doing Star Trek fan fiction or thinking about me in Star Trek. Yeah, I'd be the cool guy. I'd be like insubordinate, but on the line. So, you know, you couldn't kick me out, but I'd be like awesome and like the rebel. And people would be like, yeah, she's cool, but we can't get rid of her, you know? And I'm like, she's so funny because she's totally that, you know, that loose cannon, lethal weapon kind of person where it's like, you're too good, Mariner. We have to keep you around. But, you know, she's not really too good to keep around. So she's on a crappy ship that her mother runs. But, like, all of that, like, Worf, I love honor. I demand honor. Oh, my God. That was the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, in the first episode, she's got the contra in.
And I got it from an old guy from an eye patch.
Yeah,
an eye patch.
Those two like 2-minute intro scenes, which have nothing to do with the rest of the story, are both hilarious. I really want to see this writing team write some short treks.
Mm-hmm. That would be cool. Actually, like short treks.
Have they done any
episodes
that I've missed for Discovery Season 3?
I have not seen any for them yet. I think they're really keeping it close to the vest because no one has any idea what the hell's going on.
Yeah, I mean, there's a rumor that the last episode of the first round of short treks is set up for Season 3. But we're digressing. Although I'm wondering if they even can do short treks right now because of the plague.
True.
Yeah, like it's hard to know what's going on. The plus side about doing animation right now is it's nice to have like voiceover actors together, but like I know there's some people doing voiceover who have like studios built in their own house, right?
Yeah.
So they can record their parts at home without too many
I got a lot of friends in the video game industry, and like I know that like Squaresoft and Ubisoft are just like, here's your workstation, work at home now. Mm-hmm. So I suspect that the animation industry is in a very similar situation where they're just keeping production, they're just doing it from home now.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. So, I went to an animation school, and yet all my friends are in the video game industry. None of them are in the animation industry.
Go figure. But I think those two are very well defined, like Mariner and Boimler. Though we don't know a lot about his background yet. We know more about hers so far.
True. Yeah.
Like just more that he's kind of like a nerd, right? He's kind of like what Kirk.
He's the cleaner, right?
Well, he's kind of Kirk before Kirk drift happened.
Yeah.
The Kirk that is the TOS Kirk when he went to the Academy, which is what I understand is in TOS when Kirk went to the Academy, Kirk was a big nerd. And he's like, apparently even Gary Mitchell was like, yeah, I had to like get your nose out of a book and like all of this stuff. Like the Kirk drift refers to sort of this idea of how Kirk has over time drifted from this guy that he was in the original series to become the idea of what Kirk is now, to the Chris Pine Kirk, which is punch him first, womanizer, the prime directive guy, right? Cowboy guy.
Yeah.
Which is what, and like they're like, no, Kirk was kind of a nerd before, like, and he had a hard time like transitioning into command, et cetera, et cetera. So Boimler seems like kind of that by the book nerdy guy who's having a hard time moving into the real world. Like he can't really transition.
He can't function in society.
He can't function in society. Well, he can function in society, but he just can't transition. He's not getting the idea that his like what he's learned in books does not translate to how he works with people. And he panic. I guess maybe he can't function in society because he literally panics when command staff speaks to him.
True.
Like, so. And is becoming disillusioned with it because he worships them. And then Mariner doesn't. She loves Starfleet, but she hates the protocol. It's a weird thing. So I don't know.
I think you're right about the wet. I mean, clearly she grew up in Starfleet. That's well established. So I think with her, it's her home, it's familiar, but also she's got that rebellious streak, so she has to rebel against it.
Well, I guess it's just her parents, right?
Yeah.
So she's still, it seems like she's still sort of in an Arrested Development sort of teenage phase.
Yeah.
And what I noted, actually, we watched the first 2 episodes again just before this. And what I noticed in the first episode that I didn't notice the first time is when Mariner is like to Boimler, you're going to be my mentee. I'm going to be your mentor. You can be my Chadich. And I'm going to teach you everything. And the command staff is watching the Bajoran head of security, who I didn't know was Bajoran until the second episode. And he's like, by the prophets. I'm like, oh, hey, look at that.
I noticed the ridges on his nose, so I was kind of like, I was like, is he Bajoran? And then then he says by the prophet, like, oh, all right.
Oh, there's the earring. There you go. Yeah. But he in the first episode, they're watching her be like, oh, lower decks, and he like clinks his glass against the captain's, and I was like, oh, so maybe he's like, oh, good job, she's becoming a leader now. She's taking responsibility for her peers, et cetera, et cetera. She's using what she knows to actually teach them. I mean, in her weird, overly aggressive Mariner way, but she is. And I mean, as much as that Ferengi thing was ridiculous, it was nice of her to do. She's like, he needs a W. This guy is having a bad day. He needs a win, right? Yeah. And she didn't have to do that.
Oh, I actually liked the Ferengi thing. I think my only complaint is that she was so perfect, other than initially getting the ship lost, which wasn't actually her fault. It was more the Klingon who stole it.
Well, I mean, it is kind of her fault in the sense that she refused to follow protocol. She refuses to follow the rules. She's like, I'm going to fight with them and drink with them and get them wasted.
And she knew this guy.
Right?
She knew this guy, and she knew he has a history of stealing things, and she went like,
yeah, exactly what Gary was saying too, right? Like she knew he was gonna, she knew, don't turn your back on Corinne. He's gonna steal the fucking shuttle. He's gonna steal the shuttle because he's drunk, and that's what he does, right? So I mean, but I was really amused by her whole he's like, so you're Federation dogs now? Yeah, if that gets us what we want, woof woof, whatever. I'm like, good job, Mariner. That's hilarious.
I also like that she dated the parasitic alien just to piss off her mom.
Yeah, I dated one, but just to piss off my mom. I'm like, but would he lay eggs in your throat? Yeah. Like, what? No. What's wrong with you? The other 2 are less well developed. I noticed you are.
Rutherford.
Yeah, Rutherford and Tendi. I noticed you and a few other people actually, RC had said that it would be better if it was more queer, the show in general. And I mean, those 2 are definitely an opportunity for that.
They're definitely putting it up. I expect that Mariner will be bi.
Well, I was about to say, I noticed Mariner said that the Trill that Rutherford was going on a date with was crazy hot. She's like, you're going on a date with her? She's crazy hot. And I'm like, oh, so it's like that, huh? And so I'm like, I think Mariner's probably bi.
She just has, for me, it's less that. I caught that line too, but I know straight women who will comment on other women's hotness, especially when talking to straight men. Also, it wasn't that. For that clue being that she's probably bi, it's a trope. She's impulsive.
She's that type, yeah.
Yeah, she's impulsive and aggressive and a little tomboyish in a way that is tropey to be bi.
Yeah, she's sort of in that disaster queer zone, huh? Yeah. I can see that. But I mean, I feel like Tendi is honestly the most underdeveloped of them. Rutherford.
I like her the best.
Yeah, she's very sweet.
Rutherford does get his own episode, basically. Like,
Yeah.
him going through the process of applying to each of the different divisions.
Yeah, his B plot was basically like his own episode.
Both
and it was all about him.
Both B plots are all about Rutherford. It's Rutherford and his date, and it's Rutherford like going through.
That's right.
Yeah. Seeing, because he wants to hang out with Tendi, so he's seeing if he can go somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah. So Tendi has had no plot line so far.
Not really, no, except we're having to strap down zombies, basically.
Yeah. Despite the fact that she's the POV character.
Apparently, yeah. Like, well, she's supposed to be, because she's the new one. She's the new person on the ship. But she's the POV character, but like the main characters are obviously Boimler and Mariner, right?
Yeah.
So it seems a little weird.
I mean,
it seems like honestly Boimler is more the POV character than anyone.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just she's established in the very first scene to be the POV character, and then that just dropped almost immediately because she's the one who comes off the ship all wide-eyed and be like, "Whoa, Starfleet!" And then she is the one whom we as the audience are used to introduce all of the supporting cast and all the main characters.
Yep.
And then she gets no plot, and then it looks very much like Boimler takes over the everyman character after that.
Yep. Yeah. Totally.
Well,
it's very strange.
Start with Boimler's captain's log.
Yeah, they started with his captain's log.
So I wonder if it's like a production decision, or like they kind of changed the storyline around.
Fair enough.
Yeah, they may have, but I mean, it was even sort of pitched like the initial sort of. Yeah. Like trailers and pitches seem to be like, oh, this is about a new person coming on the ship. So
yeah.
So I mean, it's possible that they changed that.
I would have thought Boimler would have been the POV.
Well, he kind of seems like that now. It seems like it's sort of like about him learning to adjust.
Might have been like initially about Tendi, and then they restructured it, and that little bit just got left in when they were reworking the script.
Yeah, I would like to see more Tendi plot. Tendi kind of reminds me a little bit of what's the redhead on Discovery?
Tilly?
Tilly, yeah, reminds me of Tilly a lot.
Otherwise known as the best Star Trek character ever.
Yeah, she's a lot of fun. I really like her.
I'm a big Tilly fan. Tilly got Discovery season 1 is rough, but Tilly got me through it. She's such a good character. I'm like weird because I enjoy Discovery season 1, but I like Jason Isaacs a lot in that role. And I like what he does. Like, I don't want Discovery season 1 is a weird show. I really like the characters in it, and I don't like the way I even like the plot, but it's paced so poorly. Yeah.
The pacing is a problem in a lot of Star Trek shows, and I'm happy that it's not a problem in Lower Decks. But I mean, maybe comedy is not easy, but maybe comedy makes the pacing of how the plot goes easier because it has to be in a shorter period of time. Yeah. They're not stretching things out over an hour.
Lower Decks is also a sitcom, and so Discovery and Picard are trying to mimic peak TV, and there's actually not a lot of peak TV out there to draw from, especially peak sci-fi.
Yeah, true.
Whereas Lower Decks is a sitcom, and oh boy, is there a lot of sitcoms that you can just like reference for proper pacing.
Yes, exactly. And as we discussed when we were talking about, I discussed with Gary, and we discussed when we were discussing our sitcom pitch that we put in for Netflix. When you put a sitcom into a new place, like a new setting that's unusual, you can mine a lot of sitcom tropes that have been used over and over again in old settings. But they seem new because they're in a new setting.
Yeah, you can refresh them by doing that. Speaking of which, if Netflix ever does this again and our show doesn't get picked, Native Red Green.
Native Red Green. There you go. RC can come up with all sorts of ideas on indigenous spins on things. We're if that's what you need, please come to us. Well, we've got it set.
So if any of our viewers are old enough and Canadian enough, although I guess it was recently discovered that the whole of the Red Green Show is on YouTube.
Oh yeah, nice.
And so I was rewatching a couple of episodes. I was like, you could do this on a res so easily.
Yeah, and 100%. How many things can you use Bannock for?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
What? So that would be your duct tape, basically. Is your Bannock.
Yeah, just a baking show where just everything is Bannock.
Everything is Bannock. Bannock for everything. Bannock waffles.
We should probably
Bannock fries.
Yeah.
That would be great. I would watch that 100%, 110%. But yeah, like, I mean, they can, I mean, in Lower Decks and in the show we were talking about as well, you can use a lot of the things that have been done like 100 times. Like we talked about having disapproving parents. Oh, disapproving parents on the res is different than disapproving parents in the suburbs, is different than disapproving parents in space, right? Yeah. Like that's suddenly new. Yeah, so, yeah. I mean, it's like, oh shit, her parents don't like what she's doing, but they're an admiral and her captain. Like, that's a different dynamic than usual. They can throw her in the brig, but they don't want to do that because, as I was saying to Gary beforehand, they can't have Mariner be arrested. It's embarrassing to them. It's a mark on their career as well. Also, they're her daughter. She's their daughter, and they probably like her, you know, even though she's really annoying.
Yeah. Like, we'll see where it goes. I'm very curious about. I'm wondering how much of the parental dynamic they're going to get into. I suspect it'll be one of those things where they won't touch on the fact that she's their daughter until like the very last episode.
Yeah, I think this season at the very least.
Oh, yeah. Boimler won't discover that until like deep into the.
I think Boimler's going to be pissed too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think Boimler's going to be pissed.
Yeah.
I think Boimler will be pissed at Mariner, and I think Boimler will be pissed at the captain too, because Captain asked him to spy on our own daughter.
I guess it depends on. Do we expect consequentiality?
Well, I don't know.
Between episodes, because I mean it's a sitcom. Sitcoms don't normally do that.
It depends. They have been recently. There's been more sitcoms with like or dramedies with sort of more continuity. And it's more common, I think.
I think Arrested Development was the first to really do that, but it's been really catching on since.
There's been a few. I mean, the consequences don't last very long, I think, a lot of the time, but there's generally like something like, I mean, oh, this happened a while ago. Modern Family has a lot of storylines that last over periods of time and come back to callbacks.
Modern Family I've never seen. I should probably go revisit. I don't watch a lot of sitcoms.
It's not bad. I mean, it's a pretty standard sitcom, but there are some things that are really funny about it. They have really good timing.
Yeah.
Their timing is very good, and I was saying to Gary, some of the kids have really good timing, and they are willing to let a joke sit there for a few minutes, so you can like really react to it. If you know, because some of them are so quick and they go by very quickly, and you kind of they sink in after a minute. You're like,
well,
oh
it's
god.
Also done in this like almost kind of like reality show.
Yeah, it's a reality show type thing. They have confessionals basically,
okay.
Like that. Like it's like a little bit like The Office.
So there is
okay.
Like
I know nothing about it.
Looking to the camera with a long pause when something's said, right?
I mean, The Office is an example of another show which I have seen. I had an ex who was really into it and made me watch all of it. And I was lukewarm on it, but it does also have that like carryover of consequence from season to season. And I guess to bring it back to Lower Decks, I guess like with 2 episodes in, it's impossible to tell if they're going to go the more Simpsons, everything resets each episode, or if they'll go to that carryover thread that you see in more contemporary sitcoms.
Well, I think maybe what another thing to look to is to see where they're going to go is actually Star Trek, because it is. I mean, it's not it is a Star Trek show. I think,
Yeah.
like, there's no way you can say this is making fun of Star Trek and not a Star Trek show. I think it's a Star Trek show that loves Star Trek, but also likes to, you know, mock Star Trek in a loving way. And that's why I think a lot of people have responded well to it. So you can kind of look at how Star Trek deals with some things, and they might make a joke of it. Some things just never come back and are never important again. And some things are very important, like the little energy guy, that Mariner extorted a new tricorder out of. We're not sure, did he end up, did the energy being end up inside her mom? Or did he get wiped up by her mom?
I thought the gag was that he got diffused in the fabric of the uniform because he's basically just a little static shock at this point.
So maybe that's true. Yeah. That might be done. Yeah, so that's pretty funny.
I would say, like, one of the threats they're currently like carrying through is the Boimler being asked by the captain to spy on Mariner, right? Like, he confesses in episode 2 to her. Like, that's what he was being asked to do.
Oh, it's not even episode 2. It's episode 1. He says that.
Oh, it's episode 1?
Yeah, we watched it in reverse order. Yeah.
When they're after he got chewed on by the giant spider creature.
Yeah.
He's covered in goo. So
yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see if she continues to want him to do that. But I don't know. I mean, it seems like it will be a continued thing that her mom is not gonna want her there necessarily.
Well, and like to bring it back to not to bring back Star Trek, but to, like, Star Trek can go either way with that, because you have DS9 and you have Discovery and you have Picard, and those are all shows that had projecting overarching storyline from season to season. But then you get TOS, TNG, and Voyager, and I guess Enterprise, and those are purely episodic. Although Enterprise did kind of have, because they had the whole threat with the I forgot what they're called, the like 6 alien races.
Yeah, TNG has some plot arcs too. There's the Borg plot arc, Locutus. There's a few other ones. But like they go back and forth between plot arcs and Monster of the Week, basically.
I want to see Q on Lower Decks so badly.
That would be great. John Delancey would be all over that in like a second.
Yeah.
Oh my God. By the way, speaking of John Delancey, because he and Kate Mulgrew are really good friends. What is the Janeway Protocol then?
That was honestly
that's the question.
That was like the number one question on my mind when we started broadcasting.
What is the Janeway Protocol? What does it mean?
You just fly into a wormhole and end up in a different quadrant of space.
That was one of the guesses I read on something, was something about like temporal travel or something like that.
Nice.
The Janeway Protocol. It's to go to another quadrant. Yep.
I think that gag was the one that had me laughing the hardest. Like, all our kids are now ejected in space.
the part that had me laughing was, I've never seen it. This has never happened before in any of the simulations we've done. Let's try it again on another ship with more children. Jerry O'Connell.
I love you. So funny.
I loved you, Jerry O'Connell. I like that you liked my tweet too. Thank you very much, sir. You are God among men, and your wife is amazing. He basically, Rebecca Romaine tweeted, I'm the only number one in this house. And I just tweeted back to her, I love you right now on so many levels. And Jerry O'Connell liked that. And I'm like, that's right, you do.
I didn't know that Jerry O'Connell and Romaine Stamos were a thing.
They have been married for many, many years.
Oh, I believe it.
He considers himself a lucky man, and
I believe it.
he's right. But I everything Jerry O'Connell, I just think he's hilarious. He put up a video once of him singing 90s music in the car with his kids, and his kids were just screaming, "Please stop it, this is the worst." And he's like singing at the top of his lungs, like and they're just like, "Oh my god, Dad, this is so embarrassing." It was great. He's like, how to embarrass your kids. Anyway, he's actually, yeah, they can talk about the command crew too. They're kind of interesting.
Sure.
We talked a lot about Mariner's mom, who was played by Dawn Lewis of A Different World fame. She was the dorm resident advisor on A Different World.
I mean, I haven't thought about A Different World in a long time, but I loved that show as a kid.
Yeah, I did too. I loved it too. So yeah, I was like, Dawn Lewis, shut up, that's amazing. So yay, Dawn Lewis. Also, as we said, Ransom is Jerry O'Connell, who he said something about his character being like Riker without a conscience, or you know, or on speed or something like that.
He made me think of the captain from Futurama. What's his name? Yeah, the Captain Kirk parody from Futurama. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, he's very this guy Ransom is very square jawed and Riker-esque, Riker Kirk-esque. But yeah, let's try it again on another ship with more children. See how many children you can kill.
Yeah, he seemed like Zap Brannigan played straight.
Yes, Zap Brannigan. Yeah.
That's what he seemed like. He seemed like Zap Brannigan played straight. And that was a good gag. I liked it. I think it's a bit underdeveloped, but I thought it was a good gag. I want more of the security officer. I really like that guy.
That security officer, he's great. He's great. I like Bajorans too, so that's always entertaining. See if he brings up Cisco. The cat doctor I like too, because I'm like, this doctor is like McCoy, but a cat, or like Pulaski, Pulaski. Yes. I would like, and I said to Gary, I'm like, I would have liked Pulaski better if she was a cat.
Where she's like, looks like you're going to publish more award-winning paperwork or more award-winning research papers.
Oh, great, more paperwork.
I'm like, relatable.
Like, oh my god, Cat Pulaski. It's so true. She's like,
well, it was a nice callback to what Mariner was saying about the executives always complaining.
Oh, well, she was yelling at them. She's like, how about this guy who saved your ass? Ensign Brad Boimler.
Yeah.
I mean, she's right. Like, she's absolutely, like, the bridge crew people are clearly good people.
Mm-hmm.
But like the criticism of they overlook the people below them is objectively right.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, like the captain doesn't even notice that there's this little spark of left of a sentient being. Well, she's like, I really need something cool to say when we go to warp.
Well, or like,
how about like it's warp time? How about that?
I was gonna say like not knowing Boimler's name. Like
she doesn't know Boimler's name.
Always getting it wrong.
Yeah. Yep, she's always getting his name wrong because she doesn't know everybody's name.
No.
Picard would know everybody's name.
Yes, well, that's Picard, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, to do a complete 180.
Mm-hmm.
So in episode 1, so there have been throughout Star Trek, there have been several references to citation ops. So there is a portion of the Enterprise that is dedicated to like dolphin crew members and whale crew members. And this is like a canon thing.
Yeah.
They've always wanted to be able to show it, but they were never able to for budget reasons.
Mm.
And so we know that the ship in Lower Decks does have a citation ops because it's referenced in the very first episode. And because it's animated, they don't need to worry about budget.
Oh, cool.
I'm wondering, are we finally going to get to see the dolphin deck?
Well, she keeps talking about whales and space whales and everything. So, you know, you never know. She talks about space whales a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I think some of that is Star Trek 4.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
So
hopefully we'll see some dolphins or whales. That would be awesome.
I want to see the dolphin deck. It's been this thing that has existed in Star Trek since like the 80s, but they've never been able to show it before. And I was like, well, you got the budget now, or you don't need to worry about it.
Or dolphins. Show us dolphins.
Yeah.
Also, the thing I really liked in the second episode in the B plot with Rutherford was it was a small thing, but it was kind of funny, the swerve they kept doing about how you know, normally when people say they want to transfer, they're like, I'm not approving your transfer, and they were always like, well, that's great, whatever you do, you'll be awesome at, Rutherford.
Well, like that
we wish you the best.
That goes to like the original Roddenberry vision. Like Roddenberry always felt that like there should be no internal conflict between the crew.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily agree with that, but that was always his thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Star Trek kind of moved away from that, especially in Discovery and Picard.
Mm.
So like I like that they set up that it's like you're expecting there's going to be conflict, and then it's just like, nope, we are fully on board. Be yourself.
Yeah. Oh, bears. The bear pack. Yeah, Rutherford. Oh, bears.
I think that was also the show, like, Rutherford fits in well everywhere he goes.
Yeah, I think that was it too. Everyone just
like
loves
he's
Rutherford.
He's a hard worker and gets the job done, so everybody likes him.
He was clearly very bad at command.
Yes.
Command was a nightmare.
But Ransom still liked him, apparently.
Yes.
He was just like, let's keep trying this.
And that's the thing, right? It's like, even if he's horrible at the task,
the doctor was like, yeah, you're good at it. You're terrible at this. You can fix people, but you can't talk to them.
Yeah. Sorry,
kid. You know?
Yeah.
I think the doctor was about as nice as the Dr. Cats, probably. Yeah. So, because she's Pulaski Cat. That's what we can just call the doctor from now on. She doesn't need a real name. She's Pulaski Cat. Or Cat Pulaski, as you wish.
Her actual name is...
It's Ta'ana or
Ta'ana, yeah.
Ta'ana?
Yep, it's Ta'ana.
She looks like Pulaski.
Yes,
she looks like Pulaski if she was a cat. It's like the animators were like, make Pulaski if she were a cat person.
She's got a bit more of a slouch than Pulaski, but yeah, like very much a play on that.
Even the jacket is Pulaski's jacket. Not all of the medical staff wear that jacket. Pulaski's the only one who wore it. It was like,
yeah, I've heard. I haven't looked up on anything for the upcoming episodes, but I've heard that there are some like TNG and TNG people coming to Lower Decks.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, great.
Like I haven't looked it up beyond like reading that somewhere. I haven't fact checked it, so I might be wrong.
Yeah, I haven't read a lot about it either. I read a little bit about the Ferengi guy. I knew that was going to happen, so I was like really looking forward to that. But I haven't read much else. Or
yeah, I'm actually trying very hard to go into this with as little knowledge of what I'm going to watch as possible.
I think, I enjoy the jokes more when I don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
I think they're very funny. Some of the things, just that first run of jokes, I just killed myself at in the first episode, and there's a few others that I loved, and I loved seeing just the goth. The man needs hot worms. Just things like that.
So Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's interesting because there's another animated Star Trek because there's another animated Star Trek coming, done by Nickelodeon.
Yeah, yeah. It's called,
and
what is it called?
Renegades? Star Trek Renegades, I want to say.
Renegades? Yeah, okay.
Weird. On Nickelodeon, you said?
Yeah, it's let me double check. Yeah,
it's kids content, right?
Yeah, so it'll be. I suspect it'll be. Oh no, Renegades. Renegades is a fan film.
Oh, okay.
So it's not Star Trek Renegades. Prodigy. Star Trek Prodigy is the
that's what I've heard of.
One. But I think
that'll be about kids for sure. That'll be a children's one for sure.
A
Wesley type situation or something.
Yeah. So all I know about it is it's going to be CG animated. It'll also be CBS All Access. I don't know. We don't know anything about it other than I think it does involve like a young person who is on the run from Starfleet. But I find it very interesting. I'm very interested to compare and contrast this new or this unreleased Star Trek animated series with Lower Decks because I suspect they're going to be very, very different.
Well,
given the networks that they're on.
Yeah, it depends on what they're aimed at. I'm sure, like having them aimed at different audiences will make them very different. But
language alone, right?
The creative direction too. Yeah, there's a lot of bleeping in this one. A lot of bleep swear words.
Fucks get thrown.
Oh, they bleep out the fuck, right?
Actually, when we watched one of them, it wasn't.
No, I didn't notice any bleeps.
Oh, one of them it wasn't bleeped, but the
Yeah.
one I think if you watch it online, it's not. I think, but if you watch it on Sci-Fi, we've been watching it on TV. If you watch it on, watch it on, up here in Canada, if you're listening to or watching this somewhere else in Canada, we don't have it just on CBS All Access or on streaming. We also have it on an over-the-air channel called CTV Sci-Fi. And on CTV Sci-Fi, they bleep out some of the swearing because it's on at like 9 o'clock on a Thursday. So
for some reason, Canada is the only country that is getting New Trek on actual cable. No other country other than Canada is getting it. I don't know why. I don't know how that got worked out. But I did watch Picard on cable, and they did not bleep out the F-bombs on Picard.
No, they didn't. I think Picard was on at 10. And I think, and weirdly, that's the big difference here in Canada. I think 8. Is Star Trek on? No, Lower Decks is on at 9. I think after 10 o'clock, you can do, for some reason in Canada, you can say whatever the hell you want after 10. But before
have gone to bed, I guess.
Yeah, because children have gone to bed by 10. That's theoretically, right now, I think all bets are off. But whatever. The CRTC has told us that after 10, I guess you can say fuck all you want, Tabernac in Quebec on TV, but before 10 o'clock you have to bleep that out. You have to bleep that shit out. So yeah, which is weird. Yeah, if Picard was not that bleeped out. But
also theoretically, Lower Deck is more easily consumed by a younger audience than Picard was.
That's true too. Kids will probably want to watch it even if they don't get all of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure kids watch Rick and Morty and they don't get all of it.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's
popular.
It's popular and it's animated.
Promoted.
Yeah, it's part of the cultural zeitgeist, and quite frankly, the no swearing after 10 o'clock thing might have made sense pre-internet, but it certainly doesn't make sense now.
No, it doesn't. It's a lot of things about the CRTC doesn't make sense. Actually, Gary, you know a little bit about rights, and I know a bit about rights. You probably know more about rights than I do. How, just because we know something about it, how do you think CTV managed to be the only broadcaster, as far as we know, worldwide that is actually showing these new Trek, like Picard, Discovery, Lower Decks on air, like have a broadcast time. How do you think we manage that? Like, I mean, money is obvious idea, but as we all know, CTV has
really
zero money.
They don't have the budget for it.
Because they're part of Rogers, yes. Yeah. Rogers bought the NHL rights quite a few years ago and took a big bath on that. So they don't have the money to be throwing around on these rights, but they had the rights for a long time for Star Trek.
I have a possible theory, but like nothing to validate it. No, this is just me throwing something out. I'm curious if Garrett can speak to this, but Discovery is filmed in Toronto. Picard was supposed to be filmed in Toronto as well, but Patrick Stewart refused to leave his home in LA. I'm wondering if because CTV may not have a lot of money, but they do have studio space.
Discovery is shot down on Eastern.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's where they are, which is not CTV space.
So, no?
Yeah.
So there you go.
So I would actually say it's probably that CTV via Rogers, the conglomerate, have a relationship with CBS, where CBS wants them to kind of be the place where their content gets funneled through in the Canadian market.
Could it be the former City TV relationship?
Oh yeah,
because the City TV up here, it was a chain of stations across Canada, mostly in Toronto. In Toronto, City TV was known as for probably a decade. They would do promos and say your Federation station, literally, because they would have Star Trek. Yeah. So they would have Star Trek on literally all the freaking time, and this was one of the major markets in Canada is Toronto, and they would show Star Trek probably 5 days a week, 4 or 5 days a week at least, and new Star Trek whenever it came on. So it's possible that this existing relationship with City, which was bought by CTV, which was bought by Rogers, could have allowed them to do that, even though they don't have the money. I mean, that's a huge deal, really, because Canadians are the only people who are able to like turn on a cable channel and or PVR these shows once a week. In the US, you have to get all access to do it or pirate it, right? So
it's City TV also, so it's not on Crave, which is the Canadian streaming service. But City TV does have their own proprietary streaming service as well. Although signing up for it's weird.
It's on Crave too, though. Some people who have Crave can get it on Crave. So.
What isn't on Crave, but what is on City TV is the Seth MacFarlane Star Trek parody, whose name has just escaped me.
Orville.
Orville, yeah. So Orville, although I think Orville recently got canceled, but Orville is on City TV, but not on Crave.
Oh, okay.
So
I have not watched much of Orville.
I have not seen any of it because in order to sign up for City TV, you have to have a cable. Like you have to like pay for cable, and then you can get on to City TV. It's a thing. You can't just be like, I'm going to pay $3 a month to get City TV.
No, yeah, some channels make you have like proof that you have the channel on a set-top box before you sign up for it, which is ridiculous.
Pretty archaic,
I think it is pretty archaic, especially since like you can pirate practically anything. This is the thing that bothers me about rights is, and it bothers a lot of creators actually, because rights make people money, but it keeps content out of the hands of people who want to watch it. And so that's what's frustrating.
So because of this, I haven't watched Orville. Not that I can't pirate it, but I have 4 streaming services already. So like, why go through the trouble of pirating it when I can just watch something else on any of the other streaming services I already have?
Oh, so true. There's so much content floating around right now. Like,
Yeah, Gary never wants to download anything because he's like, I have so many things I need to watch backed up on everything else I'm watching. So if I'm like, oh, I've heard this is really good, or I've heard, I May Destroy You is really great, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Which is HBO BBC, and it is really great. He's like, I have 40,000 things other to watch that are on Netflix or on Amazon or on Disney or whatever.
Or we've already downloaded.
Or we've already have that. It's like, why am I going to look for something else? And I consume so much media. I can't.
Well, I also don't watch a lot of TV to begin with. Basically, at this point in my life, if it's not Star Trek, I probably don't watch it.
But that's fair. I mean, that's fair. I mean, and when you were talking actually about peak TV and not having a lot to imitate in the sci-fi space, that is true. But also, the problem is with trying to imitate a lot of these shows is a lot of the shows that came out of this kind of golden age of television, a lot of them turned out to be, people decided they were problematic very soon after. The Mad Men's, the Breaking Bads, those shows, people love them, but then soon after, they're like, the men who are the subject of these shows are all toxic masculine, like examples of toxic horrible masculinity, horrible people. These are not the people that you should be building these stories around. Like, do we want to see, like, Walter White win? That's why Gary and I watched the end of we watched the end of Breaking Bad. We got through it, but I didn't want to see the end of it because I said to him, I'm like, he's going to win. Like, he's going to get what he wants and he's going to come out of this okay. He's not going to die.
Yeah.
And he should.
Yeah. No, I feel like that whole end sequence should have been a delirious, him dying in the desert, dreaming about his revenge. But then you just come back to his, like, bullet-ridden body, right? Like,
I would have been like, yeah.
It really should have been like he gets his due.
He doesn't because he's a white man.
By the end, he's a pretty bad guy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he's done some
He's
really
a white man and he had
things.
Cancer, and you should feel bad for him. Cry, whatever.
I've never seen an episode of Breaking Bad, but like I consume more media about media than I do actual media, so I'm familiar with like the overall tropes and sort of the overall plot line, but I've never seen an episode of it. But that seems very obvious from even just watching the trailers for Breaking Bad that was the case. And to bring back something I have seen, I do watch Rick and Morty, and Rick and Morty has this problem as well. Just that Rick is a shitbag. And like they're in the process of trying to course correct this show, being like, oh no, people are idolizing this clearly terrible person. We have to address this.
Yeah.
And then but like people have already decided, oh, this terrible person is awesome. It's like Don Draper is another one. Don Draper, like John Hamm, I think, like if you see John Hamm doing a lot of stuff on TV, like in commercials and stuff, I think he does a lot of the things, his like persona in commercials as John Hamm is like this kind of moron goofball that doesn't know what he's doing and is like super famous. So he's like just, a giant ego now. And I think he does that partially to get rid of his Don Draper image because everyone was like, this man is so handsome and cool and he wears these great suits and I want to be like him. But Don Draper was
a horrible human being.
A horrible human being. Yeah. And even like, he's like, Don is not a good person, like he has problems. Like he threw money at one of his employees at one point. Why should I say thank you? That's what the money's for, like things like that, like just bad shit. And then people are like, I want to be like Don Draper. Women are like, I want to have sex with Don Draper. And so when you set up these shows where it's like this main character, even though you're saying this person is not a good person, they have problems, they need to fix them, like people are still going to go, that person's awesome. He does whatever he wants. He's crazy. Like with Rick, but he's crazy. He says what he wants. That's great. I want to be like that.
Yeah. I mean, in Rick and Morty, at least goes out of their way to show that Rick is miserable, and even then, people miss it.
Yeah, and they did that in Mad Men a lot of the time. Like Don was like drinking constantly, passing out places, and people still like it was just the glamour and the handsomeness of the person was enough to be like, well, you know, that's the way it was back then. And I'm like, no, not everyone was an alcoholic in the 50s. You know, like, anyway, we're a little off topic, but trying to ape those shows to a certain extent in like tone and like everything's dark now. And, you know, like all, like I watch The Next Generation and compared to Picard or Discovery, I'm like, everything's so bright. Why are all the lights on? You know, like shows.
Some of that technology, like just the technology of the camera technology of the Enterprise days was like they needed this like flat lighting that could capture everything, whereas now like better cameras exist so they can do dynamic lighting.
It's true. Even I was watching Dune with Gary, like the David Lynch Dune, and I'm like, man, movies from like the 80s and 90s are so bright. Like all the lights are on compared to movies from now because like now they have better lighting technology. So everybody's like, let's make everything moody as fuck.
Yeah.
Right?
And I love Discovery's aesthetic. I think Discovery is gorgeous. Holy ball, the show looks amazing. But and I'm not one to complain about like it's not true to Roddenberry's vision. Although once again, if you are that person, Lower Decks is the show for you.
Yes. Yes.
But I'm definitely not. I'm not the person to complain about that. But I do want, like, especially with so much Star Trek coming, because we got a Captain Pike show on the way. We've got another animated series. We've got the Section 31 show coming, and rumors of a Janeway show.
And there's also rumors of a show or a movie with Chris Hemsworth.
That is like, so Star Trek 4 with the movie.
With Chris Hemsworth, Kirk.
So I really like Star Trek Beyond. But it didn't do well at the box office, and it was supposed to have Chris Hemsworth and Chris Pine, and because it didn't perform well in box office, basically they weren't able to afford their stars. So they were in a position where they might have worked something out, but who knows?
Yeah, I just saw some talk had resurfaced about something around the Chris Hemsworth Kirk, Captain Kirk.
Yeah,
not the James Kirk, but the James Kirk's dad.
Because in the first J.J. Abrams reboot, Chris Hemsworth was in the intro sequence did play Captain Kirk's dad, and then he became a big star because of Thor. So, but now because he's a big star, he can demand. A higher salary, and they're just like, Star Trek 3 underperformed, despite once again really good movie. I strongly recommend it. I think it's just Star Trek 2 was so bad that it tanked because everyone's just associated with Star Trek 2. Because oh my god, Star Trek Into Darkness, holy balls, that movie is awful.
Yeah.
When Star Trek Beyond was good. It's a low stakes adventure. It's instead of the whole galaxy being at stake, it's one space station. So it's got a lot lower stakes. It feels more like an episode of Star Trek with a high budget as opposed to a movie. But Beyond's a solid watch. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it.
Awesome.
But because it did do so badly in the box office, its prospective budget got slashed immensely. And Chris Hemsworth and Chris Pine were just like, nope, we're not taking this pay cut. Bye. And supposedly they've worked something out since then, but I've heard nothing on the details. I'm not holding my breath.
Well, especially right now, we don't know what's happening with filming in the States at all. And with Picard, that will definitely be affected if they're only going to film in LA, because I've heard that's difficult.
Well, and given the like spat of like redos, like especially with reboots,
yeah,
especially with like the Superman franchise, for example. Like I could see them deciding if it just gets too expensive on the actor side, starting fresh.
I don't know if people would take another Star Trek reboot.
Probably not, but I could see the studio making a decision to go that way because it's cheaper.
It's a possibility.
I think if you, I don't think they'll do this, but if they want a Star Trek franchise, I think the way to do it, if they want a Star Trek film franchise as opposed to a TV franchise, Star Trek's doing very well on TV right now. Don't reboot it. Go further. Do something like, you don't need, Star Trek is not a franchise that you need to reboot because it's not based around a person.
That's true. Right? We don't need the same characters.
Yeah, you don't
need to see Kirk again. Yeah, exactly.
That's true.
You could do something after Picard or after TNG or after DS9 easily.
Yeah. And even if they don't want to cross it with the TV timeline, because I know there's some rights issues with that. Although I think Viacom, there's something with Viacom and CBS, and I think they're back together, but I haven't read up on it, so don't trust anything I say on it. But if they want a Star Trek franchise, no, I think that they will reboot I think they'll sooner reboot because I think studios are very gun shy about new ideas.
Yes,
yes, they are right now.
They have their own timeline that is separate from the TV shows now. They could just be like, here's Picard in the Kelvin timeline.
Yeah, totally. Or they could fill in that timeline like in between too. Yeah. Like, I mean, there's a lot of things they could do. I mean, the actors are aged, but I mean, there are things. Yeah.
How does Vulcan being gone affect timeline?
Yeah, entirely.
Yeah.
Or Romulus or things like that, right? So
I have sitting on the back burner an entire write-up for a Star Trek tabletop role-playing game that's based on the Picard timeline, or based on the Calvin timeline, but in the time of TNG. That's like a lot darker and a lot edgier than TNG. Probably tonally up upon par with Discovery.
And I mean, there's room for that too, because DS9 did so many alternate timeline episodes that there's so many timelines available there that they could play with.
And I know a lot of people don't like it, but that was the whole shtick of Enterprise.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it became it towards later. I mean, it was really an excuse to put T'Pol into midriff top, but whatever. I mean, still, let's just not talk about those costumes.
But yeah, earlier in the broadcast, I couldn't remember what the bad guys from Enterprise were called, and it just came to me. They're called the Xindi.
Xindi, right? Anyway, well, let's wrap this up. What ideally would you like to see coming up for Lower Decks, and in the next little while? Maybe we should, we'll do it by episode, or maybe by 2 episodes, just because they're so short. We'll talk about how we'll do it. Yeah, we'll do it every 2 weeks.
I think 2 episodes is good. I like the idea of doing every 2 episodes.
So we'll come back every 2 weeks and chat about this. There goes my headphone.
Works for me.
Anyway, so what would you like to see, RC, in the next couple episodes of Lower Decks?
More gay, more
queers, more people in turbans.
Yeah, oh yeah. So yeah, there was a dude walking around in the background in a turban in the very first episode of Lower Decks, which took me by surprise because it is retconning a little bit of the Star Trek has no religion. Which I think is good. I think I think the idea that like religion is, I'm an atheist, but I think the idea that like religion is necessarily divisive and necessarily bad is a bad take.
Yeah, so, I think there are a lot of people who I don't think religion would get wiped out. I think there are a lot of people who would like to keep their, even if it's tradition. I mean, like in certain countries, religion is more tradition than it is belief. Yeah. And I can even see that happening with many things where you wear things or you do things because that is your culture, right?
And a show that is expressly about exploring multiculturalism, being like, oh, no religion, that's a bad take. So I'm happy to see that, like, I'm happy to see that there are Starfleet like engineers with turbans on and like with like hijabs on. Like I want to see more of that.
That would be great. Yeah.
So it was
that's the good way of doing it, not the Chakotay.
Yeah. Just like how Discovery has a dude in the background who's in a wheelchair.
Yeah. That'd be cool. Yeah.
That's dope. I'm down with that. But like as for what I want to see, other than more gay, man, I really thought Tanny was going to be gay, but they're really setting her up with Rutherford, like really hitting that nail hard.
I know. I really noticed that. I guess it's just that they're supposed to be like nerds.
Yeah.
You know, it's supposed to be like nerd.
Oh yeah, they appreciate each other's.
They appreciate each other's nerdiness, which I is nice too, right?
But yeah, it was so little to go on so far. It's hard for me to predict. I guess
you don't need to predict just what you want.
I want to see, as much as I do really like Mariner, I want to see her impulsiveness, her impulsiveness and her sort of her flippantness have a bit more of a negative impact on her as a person.
Yeah, you want to like she hasn't had her flaws haven't had haven't given her problems consequences.
Yeah, like
her flaws.
Like in number 2, she ended up her flippantness got the ship stolen or got the shuttle stolen, but they still got the guy there, and sure they'd go through some hassles, but her excellence got her through all of it.
Yeah.
So I want more consequences for her attitude. I want to see her be negatively affected by this shitty attitude that she has.
Yeah, instead of Boimler being negatively affected by everything she does, which is so far that's happened. He just gets run over by all of her consequences so far.
Yeah. So I think that is the thing that this juncture, that is the thing I want to see most.
How about you, Gary? What would you like to see in the next few episodes?
I think I'll probably want to see more of the differences between the kind of the executive command and the lower decks, and like the duties that they end up kind of being thrust on them, and highlight some more of the facts that like maybe Mariner's right, like the type of stuff that comes down the pipe, as it were, isn't always glamorous, isn't going to be the greatest. Like, it's not first contact, it's not going to be any of that sort of stuff. And maybe kind of try and wash some of the bright-eyedness that a lot of them have right now. So maybe a little more disillusionment among the ranks.
That'd be cool for sure.
Yeah,
that's definitely some stuff I would like to see as well. I would definitely also like to see a few more consequences for actions in terms of Mariner's character. I just also like to see Tendi developed a bit more. I haven't seen a lot of her, so it would be nice for her to have a B plot. Yeah, it would be nice for her to have a plot line or a B plot or something that isn't related to Rutherford or related to the others, that is sort of like her own thing.
Yeah.
And I more gay. Any gay would be nice. Any gay would be nice. And I would really like to see some more of the parental dynamics come into it, and how Mariner's parents relate on the level of handling this kid, because they seem to still get along and be together, but they definitely have differing opinions on how to handle Beckett. So I find that really interesting, and I think family dynamics in Star Trek is always something that's been in there, and they really like to mine for drama. And so I'd like to see it mine for humor. Yeah. So that's about it. I think what we'll do is we'll come back in 2 Saturdays from now to discuss the next 2 episodes of Lower Decks, since they are short and it's a little difficult to kind of have a full discussion about 30-minute episodes. So
I think once we get more episodes, also we'll get better grasp these characters. And I think
it's still early days.
There'll also be some room to go back and like watch these older episodes in context of like development,
and see kind of how far they go and if there is development. And I think there will be. I mean, I think it's good. The show's got a really good start. And there's been some really good jokes. And like I said earlier, and we've all kind of agreed, the love for the show and for the property and the genre is obviously there, and everybody there is obviously like huge fans of the show, because they're really like they're doing some deep cuts and really mining the tropes of the show for really great humor and really fun plot. So we appreciate that. And
they're definitely fans of the show.
Yeah, and I remembered it's Dave Walsh, so thank you, Survivors, Dave Walsh and John Cochran. Good job, Survivor fans. Gary and I here are very happy to see you guys working on the show. So thank you.
You've come so far.
You've come so far.
I haven't seen Survivor since the very, very, very first season, so.
Well, Cochran's a good guy. He got to be called the last name by Jeff Probst, so that's very important. It means he's a good player. He's up there, but he's a nerd. He's a nerd like us, so we love him. Anyway, thank you, RC, for coming with your awesome uniform. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
And
see this in podcast form later. I am wearing a doctor's uniform.
Yep. Nice. You're there with Dr. Anna. You're our Cat Pulaski, RC. We appreciate it. You'll always be the Cat Pulaski in our hearts. Thank you to Gary for coming on despite being tired. And thank you to all of you who watches and listening. We'll put up this on YouTube and on some sort of podcast listener thing later on once I figure out where to do that. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being part of the show. And I will just
have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, have a good night, y'all. Enjoy. All right, awesome. Thank you.
Yay. Success.
So I don't. If I can switch to. Have you guys checked out Chicago?